All right, y'all, it is time to answer your questions, and we've got some calls lined up again today, and I'm so excited to talk to you. We're going to start by going to Kathy in New York, New York. Hey, Kathy, how are you?
I'm good, Christy. How are you?
Good. What's going on?
So for me, I'm in a different season of my life in that my son is grown, and I have two wonderful grandchildren. So recently, this past year, just with everything going on, I went through a real season of my life of really pruning back. I'm an eBay selling and social media consultant. So what I did was I pruned back on some private clients. My membership exploded just because of more and more people working from home and scaling their home eBay selling business. So basically rejuggled a lot of things because what had happened was I'd let a lot of things creep onto my plate, and I was consistently doing 14, 16-hour days. And not the greatest for mental, physical, spiritual health.
Right.
But also my husband kept saying, like, could you please get off the computer?
Right.
So my question is, so I've really done a great job of pruning so that he asked that I would walk away from my work. I'm an early riser by 4 p.m. so that late afternoon, evenings, I'm also an early to bedder, would be our family time. So I worked really hard to prioritize my commitments so that I can walk away from my desk at 4 p.m. So my question to you, because what's happening is I'm noticing things are sneaking back on my plate. What are your suggestions on how I can judge rightly to choose my good, better, best choices moving forward? Because I do have some time. I do have some things I could let back in. But how do I judge good, better, best as I move forward so that I stick to my commitment that I walk away from my work by 4 p.m.?
All right. I want to challenge something here, Kathy.
Okay.
Now, I will go with you on the good, better, best. I like your question, but I want to start with an assumption in your question. And here's how you said it every time. And so this is why I kid with you, but also I want to start here. Every time you talked about things that end up on your calendar, they sneak there. They just sneak there. They just creep in. They just sneak. They just barged in. You didn't have any say in this at all. They just appeared on your calendar, Kathy. Kathy, listen, things are not sneaking on your calendar. You're allowing them to go there. You are the gatekeeper of your calendar and your to-do list. So let's start with that. Let's start with the understanding that the person in control of your calendar is you. And anything on your calendar is something you put there or something you allowed to be there. So maybe there's something going on in you that's allowing things through that you don't really want to get through. That's allowing things through that you end up resenting and regretting later, or gets you to a place where you're working too much that you don't even want to be doing. Maybe it's a lack of intentionality. Maybe you've got some guilt. Maybe you've got some people can be addicted to their work, Kathy. Like, I mean, the truth is we've just got to get honest about what's the deeper motivation going on in us that leads us to say yes to these things. And so let's start there. What questions do you ask yourself before you commit to something, before something makes it on the calendar and your word sneaks on the calendar? How are these things getting through in your mind? What's going on there?
I think it's the ones that don't look like they're going to take a lot of time. When a project or a client approaches me and I know it's going to be a big chunk of time, then I really sit down and run it through questions I ask myself when I'm taking on a project to see if it's really a right fit. It's those little half an hour here, an hour there. Kathy, can you do this? That kind of thing. When I say sneak on, I just go, oh, yeah, sure.
Right.
Without really counting the cost of, okay, great, it's only half an hour, but what 30 minutes out of your week, where is it going to fit?
Right. You know, it's so interesting because I'm so guilty of that with everything, Kathy. I always underestimate how long something will take.
Yes.
It's just a little bit here. Oh, it's just this one little thing. It's just one little thing.
Right.
Here's a practice that you can start doing, okay? Something I want you to get in the habit of. So, Kathy, your plate is already full. You've already determined that your plate is full. So that means that if something enters your schedule, is going to be added to your plate, something has to go. We're not going to add anything in addition to what's already there without taking something away. And what that's going to help you do is it's going to force you to make choices, because right now you're not making choices. Your answer to everything is yes. Your default is yes. Yes, I can come earlier, stay later, multitask a little bit more in between. If I could just work harder and faster, if I could just be more productive, then I can squeeze it all in. And you're exhausted. That strategy is exhausting you. And to your point, you're probably doing a lot of stuff that's just okay. That's not a huge ROI. That's not really life-giving. And so if you begin to ask yourself, like, okay, if something is entering the picture, something has to go in order for that to enter the picture or get added to the schedule, then you force yourself to ask yourself, is this better than what's already there? Is this better than what I've already got on my calendar? Because if it's not better, it probably is not worth bumping something off. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. It really does. And it also, what came up when I was thinking about it, because I'm praying listening to you, is I love my work.
Right. Oh, I hear that. I hear that in your voice.
I have a business that I love.
Yeah.
And I work with sellers and clients that I really like. I mean, that was my pruning process, was to sort of prune out the ones that weren't, on such a high, but that weren't right fit. So everybody is right fit. And I really adore my clients. I mean, they're wonderful, wonderful businesses, wonderful people, my sellers. So it's that thing of when to take on a new team member. So it's like, okay, I'm going to expand. But part of the expansion is I'm not doing all of this. I'm taking on a team member, or I'm expanding the responsibilities for a current team member. Or it's okay not to be everything to everyone, and let someone else support this client, this person, this whatever. It doesn't need to be me. And I think that's the thing of not being willing to not be everything to everyone.
Well, you and every entrepreneur that's ever lived has the struggle of no one can do it like I can. Right?
And also because it's so much fun.
I know. And because you love it. Now, I will tell you, Kathy, both my mom and my dad are entrepreneurs. I'm very entrepreneurial. I get the loving your work. I get that. Let me give you one more thing before we wrap up. Let me give you one more tactical thing to do. I want you to set a goal of how many hours in a week you're going to work. Because what happens is you might have a goal in mind, and let's say it's, in this season of life, you want to work 30 or 40 hours a week, and you set that goal. But then when all these things creep in, you end up into 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Sometimes we need goals to stretch us to get to that goal. Some of us that can have a bent towards being a workaholic because we genuinely love it so much. Yeah. Some of us need a goal to rein us in, to protect us from ourselves. And that looks more like a boundary. And you're going to say, I'm going to work 40 hours a week, and I'm going to fill that with my very best clients. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I'm going to force myself to be off, to read a book, hang out with my husband, go outside, do something fun, go to a movie, and force yourself to have a life. Because if you're not careful, people wired like me and you, our work can become our life. To give you an example, true story, Kathy, I'll just be super transparent with you and everybody listening. When my husband is out of town and I could do anything at night, anything I want to, often I'll take my computer out and write because I love it, because I love what I do. But if I'm not careful, then I will fill every waking minute. Now, thankfully, I have little kids at home that will not allow me to just work all the time because they have a lot of demands of their own. But in your season of life, you might have the margin to work more than is good for you or more than you even want to. So I would just encourage you to set a goal for what that is going to look like. What are your work hours going to be? And then fill those with only your very best. So that means that when something new comes in, you hold it against what's already there and go, is this better than what's here? The last thing I would encourage you, Kathy, and you didn't ask this, but I just want to throw it in there because this is a good lesson for anyone that has businesses. If you are in that high of demand, it's time to raise your prices, period. That is an absolute, there's not a lot of formulas when it comes to pricing. There's some variables we want to consider. But if you are in that high of demand and your plate is that full and you don't want to hire, or even if you do want to hire, maybe you hire someone and they're at the lower rate and you raise your prices to get access to you. Time to raise your prices if you're in that high demand. But it's a great question, and you're doing awesome. And here's the thing. Don't beat yourself up for the fact that you want to work a lot. You're doing it because you love it. So that's not a bad thing. And in this season of life, you get to define what success looks like. If success is 30 hours a week or success is 60 hours a week, you get to decide because you get to create your own version of balance, your own goals, your own version of success when it comes to your work and your life. I just want you to think about it with some clarity and not be so reactive when things sneak on your schedule. I want you to plan your schedule in a way that reflects what's right for you. But it's a great question, and thanks for calling. All right, y'all. I love answering your questions. Again, you can always send them to me on social media. I hang out the most on Instagram, and my handle is at Christy B. Wright. You can send me your questions, and we will get you lined up to call into the Christy Wright Show. I would love to talk to you and love to hear your story and give you any advice in any way that I can help.